So, things have come to a whole new level with the nutty professor, because what have I found out today? Found out not only is this man very intellectually dishonest and a creationist and intelligent design, as I'm sure he'd prefer, he's a young Earth creationist. Today was supposed to be one of the days in which, according to the curriculum, we would be learning the basic principles of physics to lead into our physics of sound course. And the previous class, we had started learning about the scientific method. And that's about all we did for that class. And today was supposed to be more of the same. It wasn't. We started off talking about the scientific method and doing a little written assignment about it. We actually watched the witch segment from Monty Python, and we went through it step by step and saw what was wrong, how they're making assumptions, and so on and so forth. And the funny thing is, with him, with things like this, his logic is very sound, which really confused me for reasons you'll hear now. One thing he'd mentioned before this written assignment was the giant squid. He said before we had found any kind of specimen or had any empirical evidence of a giant squid existing, here was why we thought they existed. He said it started off by, one or two people said they saw one. And that wasn't enough. And then he said, well, then some credible people, like an admiral, that's what he said, had said they had seen one. And then he went on to say, and then reports became more and more widespread to where all these people saying they've seen a giant squid, and therefore, we've accepted it as fact. And he actually said that is an acceptable that is an acceptable standard of evidence. Okay, so there was the first, right off the bat today, there was that. So then we did our little assignment with Monty Python video, and it was all right and good. And then we went totally in a wrong direction. And I took a big issue with this. Things seemed to be getting worse in this class. So, what did he start off? Well, it's not what he started off with. It's just, I'll give you a general idea of what he did. He took a few different concepts, like the formation of the Grand Canyon and fossils and how fossils formed, and the best is radioactive carbon dating, and said that, and he made strawman arguments about all these topics, and I think one or two more. He made strawman arguments and then knocked them down and said this is why they're wrong. What really got me about this, I'll tell you one example. He said, radioactive carbon dating is wrong. Well, at least we have evidence that it's wrong because of this. Because if we see a volcano erupt and we carbon date the rocks that come out of this eruption, they will read to be millions of years old. And therefore, radioactive carbon dating is wrong. I'm just going to leave it at that because strawman argument, I'm not even going to address it. So there was that, and then he tried to say, I don't know how much truth there is to this statement, but I have my doubts about its validity. He said, the rocks that fossils are in, that large majority of fossils are found in, cannot be carbon dated. Huh? Then why do we say we've carbon dated fossils and, here's how old they are approximately, such like that? I'm a little confused about that, but okay. And he actually said that he had a professor once, I forget what class, but some science course. He had a professor which said, well, we know the age of the trilobite fossil in this rock because of the age of the rock layer. And he said he asked the professor a question, well, how do we know the age of the rock layer? And the professor said, well, because we know how old the trilobite fossil is. It's circular logic. Well, it is circular logic, but I highly doubt a college professor, unless he was your mentor or something. Told you. So, he goes through all these straw man arguments, one by one, and I'm just sitting here, rolling my eyes, wanting to jab a pen into my eye. And he ended with a coup d'etat. He ended by saying, once you see this evidence that I've shown you, you start to think, maybe the Earth isn't as old as they had taught me. And maybe evolution isn't true like they taught me. So once you realize that, you start to see that there's a lot of room for a creator. That's how this man ended the class. I don't even know what to say. I was just awestruck. So, after sitting around thinking about it today, I know the action I'm going to take. I've had enough. He may or may not bring it into the classroom in the future, but I don't care. He's crossed a line. And it's unfortunate that I know I'm probably the only one in the class that sees an issue with this. Most of the kids in the room are just fresh out of high school, and they're taking him as credible because, he's my teacher, he's a professor. And I had struck up a couple conversations, and, something like, can you believe this guy? What he says about this and this and this? And they just looked me square in the eye and said they didn't see anything wrong with it. And even a couple of them, basically, in so many words, told me to piss off because what the Bible says is right. Like, alright. That's great. But anyway, so I'm going to try to raise a little bit of hell. I'm going to go up the chain of command. I'm going to start by going to the department head. And he did... Oh, that's another fun point I forgot to mention. He said that when he tries to convince his peers of his beliefs like this, that they laugh at him. They say he's an idiot and that he's wrong. I wonder why. And he says that they do this because, in his words, scientists are like religious zealots. I've heard this before in one of my videos, I think. The scientists are basically religious zealots because they will hold to what they believe and what they're comfortable with, despite evidence. I probably shouldn't say his name. Professor, do you even know what science is? I don't think you do. There may be people like that out there, but they're not the large majority. So anyway, I'm going to go to the department head next, probably in the next couple days, whenever I get a chance. And I'm going to tell him what I've been dealing with, tell him the problems with this guy's teaching, how he's not following the curriculum, how he's asserting his assumptions and judgment calls based on no empirical evidence into a science classroom. And I'm going to demand that this changes in one way or another. I'm going to suggest that he be reprimanded and told that he needs to stay on point and leave God and the rest of his assumptions out of it, because they have no place in a classroom like this. And if this doesn't stop, I'm going to demand a refund and exemption from this class being required, because I'm not going to be in this class if this persists. I want to be taught physics of sound, not the shit that I'm learning about now. I don't know if you could call it learning, but he's attempting to indoctrinate me. And if things don't change, there's going to be some hell to pay. I've had some nutty professors, but not like this. I've had a couple very leftist professors and a couple very right-wing professors. A lot in the middle. But no one like this. No one to nearly this effect. So intellectually dishonest. He's flat out lying to people's faces. He's teaching young, impressionable minds things that aren't true, using terrible logic. And that's why this bothers me so much. It's not for me. I know he's a jackass. But I'm worried about these other people that are watching him, that are listening to him. And that they might think he's credible. So, rate, comment, subscribe, and I will keep you all updated as to what's going on. This is Turtimus. Peace.